What if I were to tell you, give you a set of rules or a set of promises? That's a better word. And in those promises, I said to you, the time will come in the future where no one will fear a virus and no one will ever wear a surgical mask. Well, you might say, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, think about what that means. Of course, having been in the COVID era, we can talk about that. What does that mean? That means there must have been a time where people feared a virus and people wore surgical masks. So this is a promise that someone is saying that this will never happen, but you can assume it means will never happen again, because clearly this is indicated as something that happened prior. There is some issue there. So when we put that together, we understand there's something that is being predicted for the future that people may be encountering now or may be in fear of encountering again. We can think of that in light of today's first reading. We're in Isaiah. Of course, we're following Isaiah along in this first week of Advent. Isaiah chapter 11. And this is kind of like, this is like the top drawer of readings. I'll be honest. You know, the top drawer is that drawer you have in your house, and you take it out and it's got everything. It's like that drawer that's got everything in it. It's got, let's see, I've got this here, I got this here. I can't find what I'm looking for. There's a special screwdriver I have, and it's not with my other screwdrivers, and I can't find it maybe it's in my top drawer among light bulbs, flashlight light bulbs, and screws and rags, and you know that kind of top drawer I'm talking about. Well, this is kind of like the top drawer of Bible verses. Remember I told you Romans 12 is like the desiderata of Bible verses, the Christian desiderata? This is like the top drawer, because you're going to find so many things in this very simple Bible verse that is only 10 verses long. That's it. It's only 10 verses long. It's chapter 11, verses 1 through 10. First, we begin with this concept of a shoot will sprout from the stump of Jesse. Well, what does that mean? That's incredibly important, because what does it say? Well, obviously, there are people, for some reason, I have to admit, I don't like them. I just don't. You go in some parishes and say, well, let me show you our Jesse tree. And they come out with this tree, and it's supposed to represent everyone that descended from Jesse. But there is no tree in Isaiah. It's a stump. It is what's left of the tree. And what is the stump of Jesse? Well, who is Jesse? Jesse's the father of David. So what's happening is there is going to be a shoot. In other words, the family of David will bring forth a whole new branch. So, I remember they would say, oh, we have to do our Jesse tree. Well, there is no such thing as a Jesse tree, because it's the stump of Jesse. In your parish, you may do one, but just know that I said this. Okay? And so you've got this whole new the whole new branch comes out from the root. So what are you talking about? A descendant of David. That is key. That's huge, because who are the people, who is the person who is most important in the kingdoms, the reigns of Israel and Judah? David. During the time of David, it's the golden age of Israel. David was, first of all, the king. He was the second king of Israel. Because remember, the first one was Saul, and Saul was afraid that David was going to take over. And so Saul literally wanted to kill David, and there was that whole tension between them. But David recognized that Saul was the anointed of God and wouldn't do anything to harm him, and tried to convince him all the time. So David was the second person of the kingship of Israel, and he was the penultimate person to oversee a full kingdom that is in Israel. Then you had Solomon, and under Solomon you started to have division, and then ultimately it completely divided into the two kingdoms after Solomon. So you have David, and then you have Solomon you have Saul, David, and Solomon as the leaders, kings of Israel. And who is the golden age? David. It always reminds me of that story. I know you've heard before. We were in it was actually a messianic temple, and I think there's only one in the United States, and that's in Dallas. So you know where I was, and I was with two Catholic friends of mine from Brazil, and they were looking for a Jew. He was a Messianic Jew, but a Jew named David. I went, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "That's like walking into an Irish pub looking for someone named Pat." It's a very common name because David is so much considered, so celebrated in the Jewish community, just as Patrick is so celebrated in the Irish community. And if you go further down the path, when you talk to our political parties, who is the king of the Democratic Party? Some people will say Obama, some people will say Clinton. Some people will say whomever, but ultimately a lot will say Kennedy, and even more FDR. So they're always looking for the candidate that is most like John Kennedy, but John Kennedy only was president for actually not quite 3 years. So he's considered a great hero and a martyr in the Democratic Party, but he really didn't serve as president very long. So now you go back to FDR, who was elected 4 times to the presidency. He is the reason why there are term limits on the presidency. He was elected 4 times. That was FDR, and he is considered the great Democratic candidate. The Republican side, similar. You have people celebrating Trump, and for centuries, or at least decades, you'll have people talking about Trump. But who is the great hero of the Republican Party? Well, first of all, the biggest one is Abraham Lincoln. But then who is the one after that? Ronald Reagan. Okay, so those thoughts, when you talk to the Democrats and you bring up FDR, when you talk to the Republicans and you bring up Reagan, think of that in light of what this is saying. This is saying, and remember, we're in the 8th century BC in Judah. Assyria has conquered Israel. Remember, the kingdoms are already split. Assyria has conquered Israel. It's gone, not to exist again until 1948. Judah is under threat, and Judah will survive. The Lord will protect Judah, but it's right now under threat. And now Isaiah is predicting, I'll get these words out, predicting this great time of the future. And so he's talking about this great leader from the stump of Jesse. That is like saying in the United States, and there will come to the Democrats, and there will come a leader who will be in the mindset of FDR. Whoa, wait a minute. We've got to talk. Whoa, who is this guy? Or in the Republican Party, there will come a leader who is of the mindset of Ronald Reagan. Whoa, who is this guy? That's what you want to look at. That's going to be their mindset. And then right after that, we have these famous verses of what spirit he will have. And we see a spirit of wisdom and understanding, counsel and strength, knowledge and fear of the Lord, and his delight will be the fear of the Lord. What are those? Those are the gifts of confirmation. Those are the spiritual gifts you receive from the Holy Spirit at confirmation. So, again, this is this top drawer of verses. Now it's like, the top drawer of verses. How did we go from thinking about FDR and Ronald Reagan to the Spirit, the gifts of the Holy Spirit at confirmation? It's the top drawer. It's like, well, how did I find this screwdriver in the same place I find flashlight bulbs and old batteries and keys I don't need anymore and business cards and, what do you call them? Ink things. Ink things. What do you call those things? The things you use in a printer. Printer ink cartridges. And this top drawer that has everything in it. Right? This top drawer that has everything in it. Someone once told me they noticed I don't speak with a Boston accent. And because I've worked in radio, so I work to get my Boston accent out. And so they noticed I don't speak with a Boston accent. So in light of that, not speaking with a Boston accent, one time I said, well, what do you have in your drawer? And they went, what? I said, what? I just said, what do you have in your drawer? And they said, that's not how you pronounce the word. I said, well, how do you pronounce the word? And they said that now we know you once spoke with a Boston accent because that's our word with the Boston accent. I guess the actual way you're supposed to pronounce it is drawer or something like that. I don't know. We always said drawer. And I said, so in any case, but there it is. Now we have the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So we're looking at that and we're going, well, how did we go from David and the stump of Jesse to the gifts of the Holy Spirit? It's this top drawer of verses. And then we continue. He will judge the poor with justice and decide fairly for the lands afflicted. What does that mean? That there is great corruption who are taking advantage of the poor and they are deciding unfairly against the lands afflicted. I mean, you can see this is one of the things to keep in mind, that the reason why this verse is here is they're talking about this verse explaining those things that the great leader will have. Do you understand? And this is what's being said. And then it continues that talking about how he will treat the ruthless and how he will treat the wicked. So what does that mean? The ruthless and the wicked are getting away with anything they want, and they're oppressing people, they're taking advantage of people, but there will come a leader who will finally bring true justice. Remember, one of the things we want to look at is, and people miss that. They think that we're called to live a moral life, which we are, but we're called to live a life of justice and righteousness. Righteousness is the expression of justice. We can look at it that way. So if you live a righteous life, it's not that you are acting morally, you're acting justly, which is like a step more than morally. Morally is important, but justly. So in other words, you can say, well, there's a man who will never steal. Yeah, but he won't allow any kind of policy that supports the poor. Then he may be acting morally, but he's not acting justly. He's not acting with righteousness. And this is what's saying that the true leader will act with justice and righteousness. We see this. And then the next stage in this, all these items in this top drawer is signs of people who will live in peace. And how is that? By those aspects of the animal kingdom that are known to be hostile to each other. So you see such things as the calf and the young lion shall now be together. The cow Was it the calf and the young lion? Well, why will that happen? Because the calf and the young lion will not be considered enemies trying to eat, or the young lion won't be trying to eat the calf, because they'll live in peace. This is it. With this leader acting justly, bringing an end to the wicked and the ruthless, people will finally live in peace. And who is this servant? We know the servant is Jesus. Jesus, his kingdom is a kingdom of peace because it's a kingdom of justice. It's a kingdom that doesn't tolerate wickedness and evil. So we see all that. And there we go. We're going to talk more about this on the other side of the break. Don't forget to subscribe and to comment. Let people know. And I get all these likes. I found this thing. I didn't know I got as many likes. I just thank you for all you all who are giving likes. We'll be back right after this. Did you know that the Catholic Audio Media podcast is available on various podcast platforms? You can find us, among others, on Podbean, which is our home platform. You can find it on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeart, among others. Just look for Catholic Audio Media, all one word. On some platforms, such as Spotify, look for Catholic Audio Media, 3 words, and subscribe and listen to the Catholic Audio Media podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back. And so we're talking about these really powerful understandings of what this is teaching here. Remember what I'm talking about? This is the top drawer of passages. It's got everything in it. It's got this whole thing. It's got David. It's got the roots. You know, the person's going to be a descendant of the root of David, which starts with this bud that comes from the stump of Jesse. You know, all of this stuff. And what are we looking at? Now, maybe we should step back one and start looking at where is this kind of injustice in our own world? And it's intense. It's there. It's, you know, people who are acting unjustly in order to get what they want. And that's what's saying. The king will bring an end to all of this. And how are they acting unjustly? How are they acting unjustly in today's world? Oh, have you ever heard of opposition research? If you don't know what that is, which I'm sure many of you do, opposition research is if you're going up for an election and you're running for an office. It's part of the practice of mudslinging. So what you do is you hire people who find bad information about your opponent. So they find everything. They'll look for, nowadays, they'll look for everything on social media. They'll look for everything anywhere, anything that you have said or anything anyone else has said you said. And so what you have is, we heard that this person was this kind of person, and we heard that this person was that kind of person. And it's all this, what is ultimately hearsay. Well, one of the things it says in this verse is he will not rule by hearsay. But remember, that's opposition research. Let's paint this absolutely horrible picture so that people will not vote for our opponent. I have this experience. I've been outspoken. I'm not so outspoken anymore, but I've been outspoken in the past. Okay, so here we are doing what, in being outspoken, right? And usually I would be outspoken against those people who were giving me a hard time, and turns out they were connected to one of our political parties. I'm not going to tell you which one. If you know my story, then you know which one it is. But I'm not going to tell you. It's one of our political parties. And you had the other one that wasn't doing any of the stuff, but they weren't doing anything to counter it. So they might as well be just as bad. But So I noticed, I said, everyone who was doing these terrible things against Catholics were all part of one political party. Well, apparently my words got so disturbing to people in that party, they sent someone to see me to try to get me to stop thinking so badly of that party, which is kind of hard to do because the people in the party were doing some really threatening things to certain people. So, you want to turn around and say, they're not so bad. Well, they are when they threaten people. So, sorry. But what he would do is he'd want me to support that party. But what he would do is he'd tell me all the things that the other party was doing bad or badly, right? Well, and after this conversation, you realize he wasn't telling me any reason for me to stand up for his party, because he wasn't saying anything good. It wasn't like, well, we do this and we'll do this and we'll help people do this and we'll do this and we'll build this and we'll do this. It was just all they do this and they're that and they're this. All this hearsay, opposition research, bad words and everything trying to get me to think badly of the party. Fine. But he never made me think more positive of his own party because of the fact that he was focused on just getting people to think badly of the other party. So what does your party stand for is a simple solution. If all you stand for, and this is one of the complaints about certain parties today, all you stand for is hating the other party, then you don't stand for anything. And this is all part of it. They will no longer judge by hearsay. They will look at the whole situation and its reality and see what is best for all parties, including the one to whom they are judging. And there you go. We won't judge by hearsay. And look at how much of our society right now is being judged by things like that, by hearsay, by bad terms, by you know what they're saying. And, a lot of our media organizations are filled with this. And this is one of the reasons why I've pretty much given up. First of all, this is one of the reasons why I have a profound dislike for American Catholic media, because they're not doing their job at all. And I will say that. Okay. So anyone from American Catholic media who hears this, particularly of certain organizations for whom I have a profound dislike, call me. Oh, what did we do wrong? Really? Want me to start? Bing, 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 bing. But that's one of the reasons, because they're not doing their job. They're not giving you the full story. They're telling you things that are maybe accurate, but they're not fully giving you the picture. And in a sense, that's kind of what this passage is trying to get you to understand. This leader will not do that. And then, of course, you've got the secular media, the American secular media. Don't even start. Don't even start me. If just don't even start. It's not even worth my time. So you understand that. You've got the secular media and, doing all of that. And you've got the Catholic media, which isn't doing its job. And then eventually there'll be a leader who will come forward that will make all of that unnecessary, because he will be doing what is right and just. This is the hope. So if this is the hope, what is not happening right now? Someone who is leading us, who is right and just. You see that? So these are powerful things. Always look at that. Whenever you see the promise for the future, that means it's not happening now, and it's what our real people are really struggling with. And then, of course, the whole thing of peace. One of my favorites, the baby will play by the viper's den. Well, how many of you want to put a baby with a viper? I told you the other day of that snore and roar. That's what they said. They're selling popcorn for their organization because they're having the sleep out at the zoo so that their children can sleep with the bears. And I think I said, yes, I know people who want other people to be sleeping with the fishes, but that's a whole different expression. But yeah, snoring so they can sleep with the bears. As I said, I'm guessing that there is some kind of cage that separates the children who are sleeping from the bears who are sleeping. I'm guessing that's what's going on. But that's what this talking. There will come a time that cage wouldn't exist. The baby and the viper will get along. What does that mean? Now, again, go back to what's being said there. Why is that there? Because people are desperately afraid that the viper will attack the baby. Not in this situation, in general. They'll do all these things to make sure that the vipers that may be roaming in the desert, in their desert world, do not come into town and get into the baby's den. Do you understand? The baby's den, no, the baby's crib. You see that people know these stories happen. They know maybe eventually. I mean, some people struggle with keeping mice out of their house. So the mouse gets in and they don't want the mouse near the baby. Eventually, it's going to happen that there will be no antagonism, and that's representative of bigger pictures. There will be peace, what people ultimately want. What was it I said the other day? You can go to the toughest areas of the inner city, and what people ultimately want doesn't make a difference where they live. They want to live in a neighborhood where they can live in peace with their own home and their white picket fence, regardless of what culture you're talking about, what nationality you're talking about. That's what people want. They want to live in neighborhoods in peace, and that's what people want more than anything else within the secular term. We're going to talk more on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast from your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe, comment, let us know. We'll be back right after this. Are you looking for guidance on how to live a purposeful and transformed life? Look no further than Romans 12, a chapter in the New Testament that offers practical wisdom for believers. Romans 12 begins with a powerful call to offer our bodies as living sacrifices to God, urging us to renew our minds and align them with His will. This chapter highlights the importance of humility, using our gifts for the benefit of others, and exercising genuine love. It teaches us to be diligent in serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, persevering in tribulation, and being devoted to prayer. But it doesn't stop there. Romans 12 also teaches us to live in harmony with others, extending kindness and hospitality even to our enemies. It urges us to overcome evil with good and leave vengeance to God. So if you're seeking guidance on how to live a life of love, humility, and service, dive into Romans 12. Let its practical wisdom transform your life. Romans 12, a chapter that offers a roadmap to living a purposeful and transformed Christian life. Available now in the New Testament. Get your copy today. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back. So we're going through this really powerful reading. It's this top drawer of readings, and we're going through this and seeing all this reality. We're going to talk more tomorrow. We're going to go over to Isaiah 25. Now remember, the first 39 chapters of Isaiah are believed to actually have been written by the prophet Isaiah. And then you get what is into Deutero and Tredero. I know I don't pronounce that right, Isaiah, but that's further down the line. But tomorrow we're going to look at, first of all, a reading that was in the movie The Titanic by James Cameron. So we're going to look at that and the promises there, and what does that talk about? Always remember, when you read the promises, that means this is what people want, so they don't have it now. And generally, you can accept the reason why they don't happen now is because this is an unjust society, and the unjust society is preventing us from having what it is we want so that we can live in peace. And there it is. And this is the promise always with the ultimate parousia, which is the return of Christ. You will have a kingdom of justice and peace. That's what St. Paul taught. So we're looking at that. Remember, as I said, subscribe, comment. Thank you for all the likes I've been getting. This is wonderful. I like those. Thank you. And we'll talk more later. In the meantime, we'll talk tomorrow. Meantime, have yourself a blessed day. The Catholic teaching in this podcast is reflected and presented as accurately as possible. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Archdiocese of Boston or any other institution.